welcome to All About Paris. Today I'm going to show you a very interesting part of Paris, which is the 13th arrondissement. We're going to start at Maison Blanche, so come with me. Today is a Saturday. We are still in winter. I think we're in the middle of winter. It's a Saturday in January, around 16 hours. It's about 8 degrees, so it's quite cold, but it's not as cold as it was a week ago. Right now we are right at the edge of the 13th arrondissement, and we are in Rive Gauche, or the left bank. As you can see, the 13th arrondissement, it's very modern. Most of the architecture is from the 17th, the 70s and 80s. So you can find a really interesting mix of all kind of architectures. A lot of traffic today, but you also have to remember that this part of the city is close to La Périphérique, which is the street, well, not the street, but the big boulevard that goes around the city. So there's usually a lot of traffic in this area, but today, as a Saturday, I think it's more than usual. There you go. You can see the different kinds of buildings that you find around here. And particularly, you can find a lot of high rises, which is not very often to see in the city, except for the high rises that you find in the business district, which is actually not part of Paris. But here you can find very, very high buildings for French standards and for Parisian standards as well. And here is also a perfect example again. So you have these beautiful brick buildings, and then you turn a little bit to the left, and then you have some buildings that probably were built in the 60s maybe. And then right at the end you can see there some other buildings that are probably from the early 90s. I'm not an expert in architecture, or you just let me know what you think. One of the interesting things of this area is that it feels like a neighborhood. It's actually very diverse, and you can find amazing food, right? It is particularly famous also because it has a large Asian population. And actually there's a neighborhood that is designated as Chinatown. I will try to go through that main area, but there you see, then you start seeing all these restaurants from different countries, not necessarily only from China, but also you find Korean, and you find many Vietnamese restaurants, as Vietnam was a colony of France, and then there's a large population from Vietnam that lives here in France, and there are Vietnamese French as well. It is a very upcoming neighborhood. A lot of people are moving here because you can find a lot of apartments that are larger than the mean that you can find in Paris. So you can see there, for example, all the different ads. All of them are like rented, rented, rented. And this is Avenue de Choisy. This is one of the main avenues of the 13th arrondissement. And here you have the perfect example because you can see all the buildings that are high rises next to more traditional houses that you can find in this area. And it's a little bit far from here, but at the end of the street you can see Le Périphérique, which is that street that I mentioned before that goes around. So I will show you a little bit of this street because it's wonderful for shopping and eating. There's a huge activity event that they do every year in this part of the city for the New Year, the Chinese New Year. So you can come here and there's like thousands of people. If you are into crowds, and obviously if you like all the displays of Chinese New Year events, it's a very good area to enjoy that. So there we see, this is like the main gate, I would say, to the Chinatown area, but in general you keep finding different restaurants and venues that are related to different Asian countries. Let's try to cross here. So Parisians usually cross when it's red, and when you live in the city, it really gets into you. But apparently, there's a lot of people that die because they are killed in crossing the street when it's red. So I try to do my best to cross when it's green only. And then you give a perfect example to kids of when you have to cross the street. So as I mentioned before, it's very diverse. There's many different socioeconomic groups, and also there's different ages. So you usually find a lot of young people because it's cheaper than other neighborhoods. But what is interesting also is that this neighborhood, it's a popular neighborhood, but then it's becoming more and more expensive, as is usually happening in other cities of the world, but it's usually happening in other neighborhoods of Paris. And there's a part of the 13 that is really, really expensive and fancy, and there's another part that is more affordable. But when I mean affordable, it's still really expensive. by a square meter. Although this is not the most popular arrondissement with tourists, I think it's a great neighborhood to stay because it's really close to a lot of attractions. It's very lively, but it's also close to different metro stations. Okay? So that would be an option. You can see there are a lot of hotels, and for living also I think it's a very good option. As you can see, there's a lot of construction going on in the whole area, but also Paris is now a gigantic construction site because of the Olympic Games. They are really getting things ready, and I hope they will be ready. So now a lot of attractions are covered. I think the Eiffel Tower was covered, but now it's not. And then you basically go to any main monument and it's been repainted or modernized, etc., etc. Let's see how it goes by that time. So we're coming to a more lively area. I'm still at Avenue de Choisy. And here we still have some decoration for Christmas time, because since it's the end of January, they leave it for some time so that people can still enjoy them. I think I heard that we are expecting to have about 15 million people coming during the Olympic Games, so that's gonna be a thing. That's gonna be really a lot of people, usually in such a short amount of time. I think in the whole year there's about like 19 million people that come here, so let's see how it goes. But as you can see, then we have a beautiful transition to a more traditional Parisian architecture and feeling. So you really find a very nice vibe, because you feel like in a neighborhood, but also you feel like in a big city. Depends in what street, and that happens a lot here in Paris, that depending on the street that you are, you have a totally different experience of the same neighborhood. So we're taking Rue de Tolbiac, which is one of the main arteries. In this arrondissement, you can have access to the line 6, line 7. Which one is the other one? I don't remember now, but it's very well served by different lines. And as you can see in this area, you find all those interesting mix of Asian cuisine with sometimes local cuisine. So I have visited a couple restaurants that they do like fusion between Asian cuisine and French cuisine, and I have to say that the results are astounding. Really have had a nice experience. So if you come here to Paris, try to go to places where you also can not only have French food, but also like French food with other influences like Caribbean or Asian or African. So I can almost assure you that you will have a nice surprise. I remember that there used to be like one or two KFCs in Paris before, and now there's like a bunch. Like they're like basically in every neighborhood. It has become a very popular fast food option, um, and that's surprising because historically people have been very open in France to American fast food, but I think with the new generations there are more of an interest. So you can see all those KFCs popping up around the city, and I think they also open what's the name of this chain? Popeyes, yes. They open Popeyes in the 10th, I think, next to a big station, and it also was like a big success. So I think Parisians are developing an interest in American recipe fried chicken. So just to say, this area of the 13th is more traditional in terms of architecture. You find a lot of Haussmannian buildings, as you can see over here. You can also see there's a beautiful sunset there, because yes, in winter time there's not a lot of light, and if you come from a place in the world that it's very sunny, then be prepared, because particularly December, January are the worst. November is bad too, because it means that like 8 a.m. it's still dark, and then by 16 it's already dark too. So not a lot of light, and then if you are not ready to be in a very dark environment, it can be kind of depressing. But at the same time, there are all these activities going on in the city, so you can do stuff. And that's the silver lining of the horrible winter months in the city. So now we're going to Rue du Moulin des Prés, and this is a part of the city that I like a lot because it's a very interesting neighborhood. You can see again over here, you see the houses with the gardens, and then you see the high rises. So it's a particular feeling of this neighborhood. Again, when I tell you to come to this neighborhood and maybe stay if you're visiting, or move here if you're coming to another city, it's because living in the everyday life of Paris, I like the places where you can find some quiet time, and there's not a lot of people, not a lot of noise. So if you're not really into those places, you have to make sure that you explore this area first, because then if you're expecting the bustling of a big city in this part of town, then it's not necessarily going to be. If you don't live like in Avenue de Choisy or like Tolbiac or a main axe of the 13th arrondissement. But look how cute. Over here, you see these old houses. Probably they have like an inner garden. And when I see the real estate online for the 13th arrondissement, you usually have like all these apartments with in the ground floor, and then they have like access to a garden or an inner court. So It's very common to find it in the 13th. Why? I'm not sure, but it's very common. So there's this tiny park that I wanted to show you that I really like. And the particular thing is that they have these water fountains. And then people usually come and take the water over here. Let me just show you, because I don't want to be recording people without their permission. But it's basically amazing, right? You can come here, bring your bottles of water, fill them, and you have free, potable, delicious water. And I think the water comes from very deep, so you actually can have very safe water to drink, and you don't need to go buy bottles if you don't want to drink the tap water, because the tap water is usually perfectly safe to drink here too. So how cute, isn't it? It's just a little square in the middle of all this mix of architecture. I found that really, really interesting. I don't know if I told you this story before, but I found it so fantastic that I have to tell it again. Is that actually when Paris was created, you didn't have 20 different districts. You had only like the main ones, like the first, the second. The first is where you find the Louvre. You can check my video. I made a specific video about it, which is very interesting because I try to give you the explanation of that one. But then you have like the fourth, etc., right? But all the numbers were until the 12th arrondissement, the 12th district, and the 13th district didn't exist. So usually people would say, there's like a town hall. You say that mairie in French, and then people would say to get married in the town hall of the 13th arrondissement meant that people would just elope, I think is the word. People would just flee away, go away with their boyfriend or girlfriend without getting married. And obviously in that time it was frowned upon, and that was a fantastic phrase, to get married in the town hall of the 13th arrondissement. So when the city started growing, the 16th arrondissement, which is one of the wealthiest arrondissements in the city, was supposed to be the 13th. And then people, being, upper class and traditional, religious, they didn't want to be associated with the fact that people used to say that to get married in the town hall of the 13th arrondissement was to elope. They just love it, and they got the name changed. So that's an interesting story. Let me know what you think about it, because I found it fantastic. And also because this was a more popular area, that's when they decided to give the 13th name to this part of town. So here we come. This is my favorite street of the 13th arrondissement. And you are basically in Rue Gérard. So you have all these tiny streets with a lot of beautiful buildings, and you also have all the bars that I will try to show you a little bit around. So this part of the 13th arrondissement is called Vieux-Tocaille, and it's very lively, and it's very nice and expensive, of course, to live, because every time you find something that is nice, usually it's expensive. But don't believe my word, because sometimes you find very nice areas that are also relatively cheap. a lot of people um, putting on online that Paris is a dirty city. I admit it's not the cleanest city, but I am also incredibly surprised by the system of garbage picking, because I mean these people they're working so hard. You know, like at 4 a.m. you can hear the garbage picking, and it's constantly every day they pass, every day, every day, every day. So they really keep the city clean. You know, they really make an effort for having all the city perfectly clean. But you know, it's like 30 million people. Well, that a city doesn't get clean is that a city shouldn't get dirty by the people that lives in the city. But it's not as dirty as people say. A lot of the videos online is after there's like a big event or activity, and of course there will be a lot of garbage, but give it a try. Don't believe everything that you hear online or in the media, even if I'm making a video online and in the media. So let's quickly cross here before it turns red. It's a beautiful day today, huh? For winter. So let's cross here too. This is a large boulevard. It's Boulevard Auguste Blanqui. And now we're walking our way to Place d'Italie. It's very common that they do this thing here where they put usually like a expo. Sometimes they do it for publicity of the building, or sometimes they do it for you know, if you go to Jardin de Luxembourg, you can see that they put like all these beautiful pictures. Look how nice this building, right next to this newer one. So there you go. I won't lie about that. It's a place full of people and things going on, but it's a very nice place to live. You can find really nice apartments, and you can also have access to delicious food and a couple nice bars. And then if you want to have like a more interesting experience, you just get into a metro, and then you go to an area with more excitement, or with a type of nightlife that caters to your needs. But if you have a family, or if you're a student, I think that it will be a very nice place to live, to move to. Let's cross over here. Just when I get in the middle, so you see this part, because usually in summertime you have all these beautiful trees, and that's something you find in Paris very often, is that you can see nice squares, very quiet in the middle of a bustling area, usually beautiful apartments. So imagine you find like an Airbnb around here, it would be perfect because you can rest at night, but then you can have a beautiful view, a very Parisian neighborhood, and you just can get out and get into a train and go wherever you want. So here we go. You saw how quiet it was over there, and then we walk for about 50 meters or so, and then you are at the heart of Place d'Italie, which is one of the main squares in the city. So there you have the town hall of the 13th arrondissement. Then you have this gigantic street going around here, and then you have a very large shopping center. It's a very nice part of the city to have everything you need. So this was my presentation of the 13th arrondissement. Come and visit. Don't stay always in the same parts of the city. This is a very big city with amazing things to offer. So open your mind and try to explore a little bit more. Or if you're coming for the first time, don't be afraid to stay in the 13th arrondissement because you won't miss anything. Thank you very much for your time, and until next time.